we're in the right place. That's great. Thank you so
Far
much.
too easy.
Yeah,
No
I got
problem.
it. I'm glad that the PowerPoint's working. Okay, so hi. If you're watching this in the recording in the future, you might know me, you might not. Hi, Cindy. Thanks for joining us. I am teaching this course because it is the thing that I hear the most from people, whether they are clients of mine or potential clients or just people in my sphere, people who are interested in eating better and supporting local food. The thing I hear the most is, I know how to eat, but I'm not doing it. And so that's what I've been focusing my practice on for so long. And that's why I'm teaching this, is because I hear the same thing over and over again. And I know that changing your diet is really hard. And I know that actually, you know, taking these bits of knowledge that we have and actually applying them to our life is challenging for people. If you're hearing the squeak in the background, I've got a little puppy here with me today. So he might have to join us as well. So all this info that I'm sharing is based on my consulting experience and all the experience I have as a nutritionist. I've worked with children, I've worked with seniors. I didn't sort of niche myself in the nutrition world until much later, and so I was able to, you know, get lots of experience working with all sorts of different issues, all sorts of different mental health issues, psychological issues, physical issues, spiritual issues. And so I really learned that, you know, it's more than just giving people a meal plan. There has to be deeper work underneath to actually move the dial. And I talk about moving the dial quite a bit. It's a visual that I like that helps people see that this is where they are and they want to get here. But we can't go from here to here. We have to slowly move the dial. And, you know, I talk about small steps quite a lot because it has to go that way. It can't just be this overnight, you know, magical thing that happens and boom, we're perfect now. And I also believe really strongly that our diet should evolve. So I'm eating much differently than I did in 2011 when I was first learning about holistic nutrition. My diet has evolved a lot. And I want everyone to understand that our diet is supposed to evolve. It's not, we're not supposed to reach this end goal and that's where we are and that's where we stay forever. Our diet is always changing, and it's changing based on our age and based on our needs and based on, you know, our symptoms, what's going on, and it's always changing. So if you're here, you're probably saying things like these. I've already tried everything is something that I hear a lot. So I've already tried anything usually signifies to me that that person has tried all the different diets. And a lot of the diets that we have in our culture today are not healthy. They usually recommend restriction, whether it's calorie restriction or certain foods. And a lot of times what that does is it affects negatively our relationship with food. So I talk a lot about our relationship with food because that's what the root is. The root cause is looking at what does food do for me and how do I view food? So we want to have this symbiotic relationship with it where it feels really good, and we don't want to have a stressful relationship with food. We don't want to have a relationship with it where it's controlling us. Give me one moment, please. I'm going to grab the puppy so you can see him and smile.
Ooh.
Noisy, come say hi. Oh, yep. Ugh. Okay. This is healthy. So, oh, hi. So if you haven't worked before on time management, if you haven't worked on prioritizing nutrition, if you haven't really thought of, you know, your digestive issues, maybe a lot of us live with digestive issues that we think are very normal. So I've, you know, talked to people before, and they'll, you know, if we talk about their digestive habits, and they'll say things like, oh yeah, like, you know, I'll go to the bathroom every few days. Well, these are not normal digestive habits. So we want to, you guys so bad. We want to have a healthy digestion And we don't want that to be something that we are only participating in a couple times a week. That should be daily, right? So there's lots of pieces about nutrition that we don't think of because we've almost normalized dysfunction. So there's also energy and emotional root causes when it comes to our food. So a lot of our traumas, a lot of our stored emotional issues will play out in our food, and they will cause us to make decisions that aren't for our well-being long term. So why holistic nutrition is so great is because it works deeper than just dieting. It actually allows us to shift our relationship with food. It allows us to take more responsibility for our wellness. And these therapeutic suggestions, while they can sometimes they can overwhelm people, we want it to be doable, right? So we want it to have people thinking about their choices and understanding their body in a different way, and learning about their body. So I'm really pro curiosity, and curiosity in our diet looks like asking questions of our body, listening to our body, and asking questions of food, instead of this culture of, being, what I hear a lot is, I'm frustrated at my body, or I don't like the way my body is, whether it's body image or how our body feels. So our culture is very much a negative talk to the body. Thank you, honey. And when we're talking negatively to our body, it's not going to function the way that we want it to, right? We want our body to function well. And if we're negatively talking to it, that's going to affect how our body functions. So, maybe you've heard of law of attraction. The more that we say to our body, I love you, you take good care of me, you do great work, thank you so much, body, I appreciate you. The more that we say these things to our body, the more it's going to function better. And that sounds like this, crazy woo-woo thing, but it's because the more we practice gratitude, we're relaxing into our body. We're understanding mindfulness better. And the more we can relax, the faster we can get to a place where our body is actually healing. So then we get to a place where we don't want to try anything anymore, because we know that that's just us giving our power away to these diets or whatever it is that we're trying. Then we stop trying everything. We just realize, I'm going to tell my body it's great. I'm going to appreciate it. I'm going to fill it with food that makes me feel good. And of course, that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight, about how to figure that out, because that's the number one thing that we're going to get to. That's going to help you really move the dial on what you're trying to do for your wellness. So I'm used to my habits. I also hear this one a lot. And I'm used to my habits is well, when we get to that point, what we typically mean is, this is just how I am and I've kind of given up. And the sad thing about seeing this is that people are not understanding how much power they have, and not power in an egotistical sense, but their sense of personal power. Their sense of, I can take responsibility in this to make myself feel better, and I'm going to move through this in a way that looks best for me. That might be having to go to therapy. That might be having to, work through some of these issues that we just keep bumping up against over and over and over again. So sometimes it's going to look very, very different for every person. And sometimes trauma is the root of what we're dealing with. If we're really having this thing that we're stuck on, and we just keep bumping up against over and over again. So when we're in this cycle of dysfunction, or if I'm dealing with someone who has an eating disorder or disordered eating, which I see a lot, disordered eating is very, very common now, because we're all obsessed with dieting. And so we have these little games that we play, like, I'm going to eat this pizza tonight, and then tomorrow I'll make up for it in the gym. And then, I'm going to eat salads for the 2 days after that. So when we start playing these games and like having these sort of like checks and balances with ourselves, that's dysfunctional. That is a sign of disordered eating. And I see that so much in my practice, because our culture has really normalized these obsessions with playing these checks and balances. Now, this is very different with, if someone is dealing with a disease and they need to be playing checks and balances with, can only have a little bit of gluten or dairy. I get this little window and then I have to go back to what I know feels right for me. That's very different from the dysfunction of playing checks and balances with calories and then I'll obsessively exercise to make up for it. Those are two very different things. So please don't think that I'm saying we never have to play checks and balances. A lot of times we do with our diet, but there's again, and this is why talking about nutrition is so complex, is because there's this huge spectrum, and within each scenario there's 100 different things that will come into play, right? So anytime I'm working with someone, it's so specialized because that person is arriving at that moment having just come through all these different things, physically, mentally, spiritually, and so it's all affecting, and emotionally, and it's all these things are affecting how they are right now. And what we're trying to do is figure out, okay, we're here, we want to be here, and how do we get there the easiest way, right? Without overhauling everything and stress and pressure. It's just really slowly, how do we get there? I'm noticing this really funny typo. I hope you see it. Self-improvement go hand in hand. It does. So it doesn't have to feel like that. I don't like feeling like people have to be stuck in these cycles, and feeling like, this is just how it has to feel for me. We don't have to be stuck there. That is a place that is pretty disempowering, right? It doesn't inspire us to be better. It doesn't inspire us to work at this. And keeping in mind there's trauma and there's finances and there's a lot of barricades for people often when we are trying to do these things. But in every case, there is a way to heal, and I really do believe that. So it's really well known that we can create new habits in 21 days. So if you look at the span of your life, that is such a short amount of time, right? And that's one thing I love to explain to people is like, that's not a lot of time to just give something a try, see what happens, see what sticks, right? It doesn't mean that you're lazy. It doesn't mean you're bad. We're just trying different things and we'll see what sticks. And if it's something that has to stick, then we were going to use these mindfulness techniques I'm going to share with you to make sure that they stick. And it's not going to be out of force. That's the great thing about this. It's not going to be out of force at all. So another thing that I hear a lot, which is a sort of a disempowering term, is I'm just used to it. So I'm used to whatever it is that people are down about. Their how their system functions or what their body looks like or what their symptom is. It's just, well, I'm just used to it. If it's something that is harmful for our wellness, if it's something that is not allowing us to do the things we want to do, live our life the way that we deserve to live, then what we're saying is, well, I'm just accepting this dysfunction within myself. And I don't believe that that's very fair to our experience as a human. I believe that we deserve to live out great things and feel really good. I believe that we've sort of been taught, or not taught, conditioned that we're just sort of filling this hole, right? And like that's very metaphorical visual for like eat, drink, substances, TV, sex, all of the things that we just do to just pretend we're not human because we don't want to feel things. And so when we're in that space, which most of us are, we're just on this autopilot, we are accepting dysfunction. And I don't think that's fair. I think that we deserve better. I think that we deserve to have that consciousness of like, I'm here to do the best that I can. I want to feel really good. I want to do good work. I want to do good work in the world. I think that everyone deserves that. And so when people say comments like this, something that I would maybe say to them if I was coaching them is, would you have that thought about your work? Would you apply that to your home life? If you had something in your life or your job that was in complete disarray, would you say like, oh, I'm just used to it? Well, I mean, of course you have the choice to say, yeah, I'm just used to it. But more than likely you decide, you know what, I'm kind of tired of this and I'm going to do something about it. And the clients that I attract are people that are in integrity. They are really dedicated. They are committed to improving their lives, you know, and that is attractive to me as a coach, because I know that someone who's committed to improving themselves, they're going to actually take action on what I'm recommending, and then they're going to get results. And that's what I want. I want people to feel really, really good. As I said at the very beginning, I believe that we all deserve this. So if we have digestive systems that are like gassy, if we're dealing with gas, bloating, and pain, you know, that's not functional. We want to have a system that is allowing us to do the things we want to do, instead of just sort of, you know, chugging along and barely getting by. That doesn't feel good. So when we decide to step up, take responsibility, and get to the core of this, right, that's when we're going to start to move the dial. And we get there by deciding to. Yes, there could potentially be a lot of things that will decide to try to hold us back. But again, I really believe strongly that there's many different routes for us to heal, and that emotional and spiritual work can be at the core of that for sure. So this is another really common thing. I don't have time to do it. So a lot of times food prep is one of the helpful tools that people need if they feel like they don't have time. You know, I'll get people to pick a day, you know, pick a day where you're not working, where you're just at home. Maybe it's a Sunday, maybe it's a Tuesday. Everyone has such different schedules now. And I'll get them to find some time in that day and ask them, you know, what would you normally do in that time? If it, you know, say it's one of 2 days off. So what would you normally do in that time? And more than likely, they're going to say to me, oh, watch Netflix, you know, drink with some friends, like maybe do some laundry. And so I will say, let's break that down. Say you've got this, you know, 10-hour chunk. Can we find 2 hours in that chunk to put some wellness in? Because if it's a choice, then we're choosing Netflix, we're choosing friends, we're choosing drinks, we're choosing laundry. Let's choose food. And so food prep really helps us to feel good about the coming days, so we know what's coming. We don't have to plan, we don't have to worry, we don't have to, you know, try to figure out recipes, like last minute scramble. This helps more for people with families, I find. I don't personally do food prep. I love to fly by the seat of my pants, and I'm really good at it. But it doesn't work for everyone. And so to me, food prep is most helpful for people who have to cook for more than themselves. And how that can help them is just to feel more organized. And when we feel organized about something, it's better, right? We feel better. We feel like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. Boom, boom, boom. We're just going to do this. And it feels succinct, and it allows us to have some repetition. And you know, repetition is not a bad thing, especially in nutrition. I have seen people in the past have a very you know, regimented, like there's meatless Mondays, there's taco Tuesdays, there's, you know, chili Wednesdays, whatever it is, and that's just what they follow. And I don't think that's a terrible idea. I think that even though people might say, well, there's a lack of variety, etc., that sort of schedule also allows freedom, because we don't have to worry and plan. It gives us more space in our head. We just know what's coming, right? It's easier. So I'm all for food prep. And lack of planning, all we have to do when there's lack of planning is plan. All we have to do is schedule it in, right? Take that time, sit down. If you have a family, sit down with everyone, have the uncomfortable discussions, like, hey, like we all need to pitch in, or, you know, everyone needs to tell me what they want so that you can get on our schedule. Whatever you have to do to make it work for everyone in the house, and get as much people to participate as possible, right? So you can take some of the load off of you. I'm talking to you moms. So another thing that I hear, it's not a big deal. Well, if you really didn't care about fixing it, you probably wouldn't be here, and you probably wouldn't be following my nutrition stuff, and you probably wouldn't be thinking about all this. So I think that it's not a big deal. It's something that we say to just brush it off because we're not ready. We're not ready to go there. We're not ready to deal with it. And that's totally fair. I get that. There will come a time, especially if we have symptoms, there does come a time where we are forced into it. And we have to decide okay, now's the time, my body is talking to me. And I really have to do something about this. And I wish that we thought a little bit more preventatively, but we don't. So I tend to meet clients at that point where they're like, okay, you're my last resort. I really need help now. So that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad place to be. It's just kind of the way we are. We wait till the last minute, right? So when something screams at us enough, whether it's a symptom or whatever it is, we wait until the sort of last minute where we go, okay, it's time now. This, and our body talks in multiple ways. So it'll whisper at first when there's issues. And then as the issues get bigger, they might start to spread, and then our body starts to yell. So when we're yelling, it's not too late, but definitely it would have been better if we could gone to it a little bit earlier. But that's okay. We always have, and this is the nice thing about wellness, we always have the chance to change our mind, to do something different, right? And to hit the restart button. We always have that opportunity. Okay, this is really wordy. You don't have to read it all. Basically, it's just a ton of reasons why nutrition is so important. And I don't need to spend a ton of time on this because it's pretty obvious why nutrition is important. I think most of us understand why nutrition is important. We're taught about it in school. We understand that our body is made up of what we eat. But there's a lot, that's come to the surface now that we know that's, even more vital. We know now more about our immune system and our gut connection. We know more about the food system and its fragility and the importance of supporting local. We know a lot more about mental health. And so all of these, points are valid. And within each of these points, there's, 10 more points of how changing our food can shift these things. Number 2 is my most favorite one, and I'm only going to point out number 2 before we go to the next slide, because honestly, if I go through all of these and talk more about them, we'll be here till 9 p.m. So number 2 removes guilt and shame from your daily life. The reason I'm focusing on that one is because a lot of my clients do live in guilt and shame all day because of their dietary choices. And it's such a disempowering place to be. And my only wish is for people, especially women, to not be there anymore. Because as soon as we free that space out of our brain and we don't have guilt and shame about our choices anymore, that space allows us to do so many more things within the realm of wellness, within health, and within our work, whatever we do for our time on this planet, whatever we do, we get to amplify that because we get to put more energy into it, because we're not giving energy to feeling bad for not eating well, right? Or for being bad because we didn't eat well. And something that I hear a lot that is the most disturbing to me, but I hear all the time, is, oh, I was such a bad girl this weekend. And I always stress to people when I hear that, you're not bad. You just made some choices, right? We have this culture of guilt, and we have this like, oh, I did this bad thing. It's just a choice. So as soon as we remove that I was bad, because you weren't bad, you just ate something that wasn't great for you. That doesn't make you a bad human. It's just a bad choice. So as soon as we take that away, it gives us some more space. It lessens that feeling that we need to carry that guilt and shame throughout our day, because we don't need to carry it. It's not our responsibility to do that. That's put on us by society. It makes us feel guilty so that we're disempowered. All we have to do is, it's coming. It's coming. I'm going to tell you, we're going to get there. Mindfulness is key, and that is going to heal the guilt and shame if you walk with it, with the food choices that you make. And I would love for you to move away from that. Okay, so three reasons why you're not eating the way you want to. So the biggest one, time. That's the biggest, complaint or reason, and it's valid. But as I said before, it's just about prioritizing, right? So you might have to prep food in advance. You might have to grocery shop a bit differently. But it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it when you start eating better and you start feeling better. And that's the coolest thing that I've seen when clients, change the diet and start eating more vegetables and eating more fruit, is they're like, wow, I can feel it. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen where they start realizing, like, oh my gosh, like I just needed, these foods with more minerals make me feel better. I have more energy in the day. I sleep better. My bowel movements are easier. There's just so many signs that our body says yes. There's so many ways our body tells us, yes, this is good. So shifts, it does take mental energy to shift our diet and our thoughts about our diet. So this is not a quick fix. But we're talking about, and we're not talking about, weight necessarily. So I'm talking about inner work that is required to do this. So doing this work, looking at food differently, looking at as nourishment and therapy instead of reward and punishment. And that's so common, is that reward punishment, right? Like that talked about earlier. If I do this, then I'll do this later on to make up for it. But in reality, what we're doing is we're punishing ourselves for a choice that we decided to make. And that's not an ideal way for us to live. And prioritizing. So holistic nutrition is for self-starters who are ready to take responsibility. We have to simply prioritize nutrition as something that we want to succeed in before we can even start the task of doing so. So until we sort of fixate this in our mind and decide, yes, I'm ready to make food a bigger priority in my life, I want to do this, we're not gonna be able to do that, right? So this is not a magic pill you can take that makes all this easier, right? It's something that we have to decide and that we have to take action on. So many people that I see in my practice, they struggle with these digestive complaints like bloating or weight gain, irritable bowel syndrome. I see a lot, especially because of the stress that we've dealt with the last little while, and anxiety or depression are really huge right now as well, unfortunately. And so, these are difficult issues that can slow us down. They can stall us from wanting to take action. And I get it. I've been there 100%. I have been there, some of those for years. At the end of the day, we still have the responsibility to be able to do this work to improve our conditions. And so the underlying message here is to take action. So no matter how, tedious or meticulous it feels, or scary, there is support for you. Of course, I can be one of those support people, but there's so much now online about moving away from diet culture, trying to get away from these systems that don't actually support us. All they do is make these big companies more money. And they do that by making you feel that guilt and shame. And we want to get out of those systems because they're not sustainable. They're not sustainable for human development, right? They don't allow us to be at our full potential. And I don't want people there. I want people at their full potential for sure. Yes, Alfie, he's just so excited to see everyone. So you have a choice. This is like the biggest, this is the biggest thing that I want to get through tonight, is that if we feel that we don't have the choice, it just means that we're in a place where we're disempowered, and people can be disempowered for many, many different reasons. I do end up talking a lot about power in my practice, which is, part of why I'm sort of this fringe nutritionist. I don't do meal plans. I'm not a typical nutritionist, that's for sure. But I want people to understand this concept of their personal power, because it's so important in wellness. It's so important that we learn about setting boundaries with people and, learning about our trauma and setting ourselves a schedule and, journaling some of our issues and having safe support people to talk to, whether it's, friends, therapists. There's just so much in the realm of all of this, and it's all there for you. It's all there for you to step into, right? So you do have the choice. Okay. So you don't need more nutrition knowledge. The reason I included this is because a lot of times we think that the problem is that we don't know enough. And so we believe that, well, if I could just, read some more nutrition books, or, if I could just find the right article online that would tell me how I'm supposed to eat, that would probably do it for me. And so we get in this place then, and, it's not a horrible place to be doing research and learning. That's fine. I'm not saying that's bad. But when we become obsessed with researching about nutrition and trying to find what the perfect diet is for us, it crosses into, like, now we're not educating, now we're obsessing, right? So it says when we enter the arena of food obsession, that's when it becomes problematic. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I have actually seen this a lot. And I have seen a lot of folks decide that they want to be nutrition experts, and they're going to, spend hours and hours a week trying to figure out which diet is right for them, and never really settling on the truth, which is what their body needs, right? They're still looking for that external validation. They are still, hoping that they'll find the right one. They're just gonna, one day they'll just make a click and, oh, there it is. There's the one diet that works for me, and I'll just find it and I'll be able to eat that way forever. And it just doesn't work that way. And one of the reasons that's problematic as well is that I've seen people do this, and then they do find a new diet, they try it for a bit, they feel really good, and then they never get off of it. They just continuously on this diet. And the problem with that is that our body requires our food to evolve, right? We need to have a diet that changes and evolves with us. And so if we're stuck on this one diet, like say in the Okanagan, I'm going to give you a really good example of this. Each summer, I like to play with fruitarianism. Fruitarianism is a diet where you only eat fruit. That's literally all you eat. And when I say play with it, I mean, there might be a day or two a week where I only eat fruit in the summer. And I can play with it because all of our fruit is local, it's in season, right? And nature knows to give us fruit at that time when it's hottest, because fruit is a very cooling food. It has the properties, both physically and energetically, of cooling us when it's hot. And so when we have all this fresh food available, I like to take advantage. It's very lucky. It feels really good. And I get to connect more with local food when I'm eating food that I know was picked hours earlier, which is really, really special. So say I decided to, go on this fruitarian diet full time. Let's say I did it in August. So August 1st, I start fruitarianism. I'm like, wow, I feel really good. Maybe I lose some weight. My energy feels good. I'm starting to sleep better. I'm like, wow, this fruitarian diet really works for me. And then come September, I'm still eating fruitarian. Okay, I'm still going with it. Maybe my body's feeling pretty good still. And so I'm not really questioning it. I'm just not really thinking of it. I feel like this is the diet for me because it felt so good in August. Well, come December, it's going to not feel the same. I'm probably going to be colder. I might be having issues sleeping. I might kind of have some joint or some nerve things happening. I'm very, it's a very like opening diet. It's not grounding and calm, right? So I'm speaking energetically about that food. And so in December, it's not natural for me to be eating local fruit because naturally we don't have it, right? If we didn't have access to a grocery store, there's no way that I could eat raspberries and watermelon in December in Canada. So that's the idea of changing our diet all the time, is understanding that there's another puppy outside, is understanding that when someone's joined us. Hi, Gretchen, you're really late, but that's totally cool. You'll just have to catch right up. I have a puppy with me tonight. In December, we're doing fruitarianism. We're going to figure out it doesn't feel good anymore, right? But we might keep pushing through, and we might say, no, this is the diet for me. I'm fruitarian. But come February, we might have new symptoms. Our body's saying, no, please, I want some whole grains. I want some hearty chili. Like, I want a good casserole. I want some beets. I want some root vegetables. I don't want fruit anymore. So we start to get these signals from our body as a way of telling us that we need to make some changes. Now, the reason I told you that story is because when we enter the arena of food obsession, it can play out many different ways. That's only one way, is when we decide this diet is for me, this is it. It can play out, the most other common way that I would see it playing out is people becoming obsessed with eating clean. So I love eating clean. Like, I know that it feels good for me. I'm very lucky that I'm able to do that. And in the Okanagan, even luckier. We're also grateful to be able to have those foods and eat that way. And so, but what can happen when we get obsessed with eating clean is that it turns into an eating disorder. And a lot of people, when they're studying holistic nutrition, we all sort of deal with orthorexia a little bit. When you're studying holistic nutrition, you eat so beautifully, right? Because you're learning all this and you're so immersed in it, and you can't not eat better. But after nutrition school, you have to get back to real life. We have to still have birthday parties. You have to, you want to be able to still have some cake and have a cookie and like have some fun, and not having some junk food is not going to kill you, right? So we want to have balance with it. And it's really hard for people to understand what balance means when it comes to nutrition, because they think when we're dealing with these food obsessions, we think that if we make one mistake, we've ruined it all. Oh, I've already ruined my diet, I'll just start again on Monday. Like, how many times have people said that, right? So balance is so hard because we have this perfectionist mindset that we have to start this thing and then it's going to go this way. But instead, wellness goes like this. That's what wellness looks like the whole time. So the other really important part I want to bring up is about willpower, because willpower is another one that I hear about all the time. People especially saying, "Oh, I wish I had willpower." People that have willpower are so lucky. So like, they're so cool that they have all this willpower. So, willpower is actually a really exhausting thing, thinking that we need it. Willpower, now I learned about this in 2012. I started studying The Yoga of Eating is a book by Charles Eisenstein. If you want to write that down, that is an incredible book that will change your relationship with food so quickly. So Charles Eisenstein wrote this book called The Yoga of Eating. And basically he talks about everything I'm talking about, but way more in depth, and understanding the principles of, he's explaining, like, this isn't a yogic diet, but we're applying these spiritual principles to eating around mindfulness, slowing down, and really appreciating food. And he explains in his book that that's what the original meaning of willpower is supposed to be. It's supposed to be when we remember that a certain food makes us feel a bad way, that we have the opportunity in the future to rely on that memory to give us the power to choose no. So it doesn't mean that we're, forcefully saying, "Oh, I can't eat cheese. Cheese makes me feel bad. I hate cheese. I can't ever eat it again." It gives us the opportunity to say, "Okay, all right, let's just get real with this. Last time I ate cheese, I overdid it, and I always overdo it. And when I overdo it, I have bad digestive issues, and it's just not worth it anymore. But so now when I'm at the party and there's the cheese platter, now is the moment when I get to exercise my willpower. Am I going to choose the cheese, remembering that it makes my digestive system feel really, really bad?" And you have the choice, but we have to take that moment to step back and have that consciousness to think about it. When we do that, we're allowing ourselves to slow down, give ourselves the moment to think, instead of having anxiety about it, right? Because if we think that willpower is this thing that we need to have, we're just going to have a fight. We're going to have like this battle between, good and evil about cheese. It's just cheese. So we get to decide. We get to say, you know what? I really don't want to feel that digestive upset. I just really don't want to. So, maybe this time I'll just have one piece and see how that feels. If I have digestive upset from that, If I don't, then that's great. If I do, then I remember for next time I actually can't have any cheese at all. You know, maybe when I come to the party, I'll bring myself a cashew cheese or a different dip, so that cheese isn't even a temptation for me, because I'll have something else and I'll be able to remember, oh, right, cheese doesn't work for me. And you know, of course, I'm just using that as one example. There's lots of different foods that, you know, might do something to our body, and there's different things that we can do to support that. I've been off gluten and dairy for a while, when I first started having my autoimmune symptoms in 2018, and now I can have some gluten and dairy with no repercussions, but only because I gave it up really strictly for 6 months, and not because it was a diet. It was because I knew that my body needed that time away from gluten and dairy to heal, because they were causing inflammation in my body. So it ended up being not a willpower thing for me, but an act of appreciation for my body and wanting my body to heal. I wanted to give my body a break so that I could do some healing. So, you know, I love this, to win the war, avoid the battle. So just avoid relying on willpower. When we decide, I don't need to have willpower because it causes me some anxiety, all we have to remember is it's just mindfulness. It's just consciousness in that moment to make a decision based on past experiences. And there's no judgment, there's no shame. It's just a choice, right? Okay, so finally, 45 minutes in, I'm going to tell you what the answer is for all of this. Intuitive eating. So this is another way of saying mindful eating or conscious eating. So this approach is not about developing discipline over our food. It's not about, you know, controlling and being the best. It's not about winning anything. It's about mastering control of our mind's cravings only by learning them. So being curious, like I said, right? There's no fight, there's no battle. We're just learning about our body's needs and listening to what it wants. So we're non-judgmentally studying, we're understanding our own thinking patterns, our emotional moods, and how our appetite changes accordingly. And so when we eat with this clear head and awareness, we are preventing ourselves from overeating or undereating, or from regularly consuming health damaging foods. So what that looks like is we're moving through our world, we're eating good most of the time, we feel good about it, we have a clear head, we don't feel really bad if we have that piece of cake at our kid's birthday party. But we also don't drive to McDonald's afterwards for the rest of, you know, for dinner that night, and 2 days after thinking, oh, well, I already ruined my diet, so I'm just gonna eat crap now, right? We're not gonna do that. We're not gonna play those games, throw in the towel, like keep dieting or keep trying different diets. It's gonna be smooth. It's gonna be smooth. So how we're gonna do that is with intuitive eating. So this is how we practice intuitive eating. And it feels really weird at first. I'm just gonna warn you that. It feels really strange at first. Because we're not taught to do this, it's really unfamiliar, right? It's really unfamiliar to us when we start practicing this, because it's not something that was taught to us. So if we're learning this later in life, it's like, yeah, it's unfamiliar. It's going to feel weird. What we're trying to do is basically we're taking our meditation practice or our yoga practice to our kitchen table, to our plate. And what we're trying to do is really connect with our food and slow down. Now, one of the best things that this does, that intuitive eating does, other than allowing us to learn our body's cravings and needs and wants, one of the other great things it does is allows us to slow down so that we can be in the proper nervous system for digesting food better. Now, if you've been following me for any length of time, you've heard me talk about our nervous systems, right? We have our relaxed nervous system, and we have our stressful nervous system. So our nervous system for rest and digest, our parasympathetic nervous system, we get there by taking a couple breaths before we eat, getting really present, chewing our food really well, right? If we're talking on the phone, we're having a fight with someone and we're trying to eat at the same time, we're not going to digest our food. We're in the wrong nervous system, and we can't be in both. We're only going to be in one or the other. So all we're trying to do is get really present with our food, which means we're thinking about our food as we eat our food. That's all it means, right? And sometimes we make these things really complex and really complicated when they don't need to be. They don't need to be at all. So present means we're with it. We're not watching TV and listening to radio and talking on our phone and scrolling Instagram. Like all those things just go away for a little bit while we eat. So we're going to look at the food, and it's actually fun to do this practice together, but I didn't warn you all to get food. So do it after our call with some dark chocolate or something. So you look at it, you're like, wow, this looks great. You notice different flavors different scents in the food, right? You notice how the food smells, and then you actually get it on your fork, put it in your mouth, and start chewing it really, really slowly, noticing how the smell changes, how the tastes evolve as you keep chewing. One of the most interesting foods you could do this practice with is white bread. I don't like, okay, I'll recommend the best white bread. Get yourself a nice, lovely sourdough. The more that you chew your sourdough, it's going to get sweeter and sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. And that's because the carbohydrates in it are starting to digest already in our mouth, because we have an enzyme in our saliva that starts to break it down right away. So all of these things we'll notice as we're practicing our chewing, and we're slowing down, and then we're going to swallow it. Just have 1 second after we swallow, feel it going down, and then we're going to take our second bite. And as I'm describing this, you're probably like, yeah, okay, I get it. We're eating slowly. But when you do it, it's going to feel really odd because we are used to doing this, right? It's like one forkful after the next, and we don't stop. And so once you understand this, you start watching people that you eat with in your home or at restaurants. Like, I love going out to eat by myself. I love people watching, and I love people watching eating, because it's so fascinating to me that we love food so much, but we actually don't love food because we don't give it the attention it deserves. We just want it inside our body, but we don't want to enjoy it in the process of doing that. So a lot of times we'll have this beautiful meal in front of us, like, we're out for a dinner with friends or a partner, and this beautiful food will come in front of us, and we're like, I can't wait to eat this. And then we're like laughing and talking and scarfing our food, and then we're like, oh man, what did it even taste like? Right? So like, this is so important to help us be able to appreciate our food more, and to like really be able to dig in and be like, I love food, I appreciate food, and I'm giving myself the time to do that because I practice intuitive eating. So this how-to is like really simple, right? You're enjoying the sensations of the food every stage along the way. The more chewing, the better, especially if you deal with digestive issues. I honestly have helped people with really, really bad symptoms by getting them to chew their food more. So I'm always preaching to people to chew more. My friend Nikki, who's a skin guru, it's like the number one thing she talks to her clients about for their skin health. She's like, are you chewing your food? It's just so important, so that we are actually absorbing the nutrients in our food. And because we're in this go, go, go culture, and we're not slowing down to do that, we're not only losing the beautiful experience of food, as an experience, but we're also losing out on nutrients. If we're just scarfing it back, we are losing nutrients because we're not going to be in that proper nervous system, like I talked about earlier, not giving our body the proper chance to start the breakdown of it with our saliva. And we're not giving our digestive system a leg up. So this is a really, really powerful tool to help you connect with food. And the more that you practice this, the more you're gonna be able to listen to your body more when it is saying certain things to you about the foods that you're eating. So the next step is actually tracking this. Now you can track it in your mind, or if you want to like really, really do this, do it well, then you'll start a food journal. So the food journal is not tracking your portions. It's not tracking your carb count. It's not tracking anything like that. This is for, I want to know what foods make me feel a certain way. So if we're full, if we ate too much, if we're bloated, if we had a headache, if the food, it didn't sit very well. All of these things are cues that we will be able to take for ourselves to help educate us on how could I have done that better? Maybe I rushed through that. Did I rush through that meal? Did I give myself a chance to chew it? Did I remember to take my supplements? There's all these different things that could be a part of that story. But when we start tracking the story, we can start seeing points in it that we get to take action on, right? So the first time I did this exercise, this was many, many years ago when I took a cognitive behavioral therapy training course to learn how to better work with people who are dealing with emotional eating disorders, and disordered eating. And this holistic nutritionist and therapist taught it in Vancouver. She was absolutely incredible. And when I first did this exercise, I found it really, really uncomfortable because I thought that she was going to be reading our journals, and I was figuring that she was going to be looking at our food choices. And it's so funny to me now, because now I understand, when I remember that story, now I know how clients feel when I say to them to take a journal, because they have in their mind, they're going, oh God, a nutritionist is going to read this? Oh God. And they'll change everything, right? They'll eat less, or they'll, buy more vegetables that week. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to read it. I actually don't care what you're eating. I want you to know how it made you feel. That's all I care about. So when I get clients to do this exercise, unless we're looking specifically for certain foods that they need to take out for allergies or autoimmune, a specific disease, something that they are really, really working on, if it's just for, I need to take action, I need to stop dieting, then I don't care what it is. This is about the how and the feeling for you. So this goes hand in hand with emotional intuitive eating. Sorry, not emotional eating, intuitive eating. Intuitive eating and mindful eating, same thing. This goes hand in hand with that, because if we're practicing intuitive eating and we're tracking our food at the same time, that's like a double whammy. We're going to get really clear on what foods are not working and what foods feel really good. And then all we want to do is up the foods that feel really good and slowly push away the ones that don't feel good. And that's the best way to change a diet. If I, as a nutritionist, give someone a meal plan, and, say someone says to me, well, I eat McDonald's 5 nights a week, and I eat Tim Hortons for breakfast every day. And, lunch is usually just like, whatever, a steak and cottage cheese. There's no way that I'm going to get them to eat like quinoa and salads and smoothies. And, there's just no way that I'm going to get them to do that in a couple of weeks. So the best way for me to get them to do that is start journal tracking. How does your McDonald's make you feel? Like, how is your quality of life? Do you sleep good? Do you have good energy, right? That's going to help us to start moving the dial, so we can say, okay, so we're actually noticing the most symptoms in the evenings. So maybe let's look at changing one of the dinners 1 night a week and see how that night feels compared to the McDonald's nights, right? So I'm just giving an example of slowly moving that dial. Okay, so meditate daily. This is my third step. People do not understand how important meditation can be for our wellness. Or if they do, they're just not prioritizing it. So I love talking about meditation because it's such a powerful tool for allowing us to get in touch with our body's needs. When we can do that, it's easier for us to say, oh, body, you're right. That carnival food didn't sit very well with me either. I feel tired now. You're right. And, maybe next time we'll have something different, or we'll just chew it better. You start being able to have these conversations with your body that are nice, rather than, judgmental or frustrating or anger. It's like, body, why do you not feel good? Well, the body's communicating that you made it not feel good. It's not its fault. It's our choice. And so when we meditate, it gets us more in tune with our body, so we can come from that place of responsibility. So what we do when we're meditating, when we're changing our consciousness, is we're learning to become the observer. We're sort of taking the back seat. And we in meditation, the more we practice, the more that we can understand that there's this chatterbox, and then there's us. And this chatterbox is always doing stuff, and this is our ego. And then there's us, and we're just solid, we're good. And then so this, when we notice that this is separate from us, we allow, or we can stop allowing these external things to affect us, because we realize that this isn't us. So when we get really clear on that, we can start allowing this idea of external sources to fix us to just go away. It just goes away. We realize that we have the power, that the next diet, the next dieting book, the next celebrity diet, that none of that is going to fix us. And that getting back to basics is what's going to help us heal. And something that I've been talking a lot with people about in the last couple months, because there's just so much information out there, I love telling people this, wellness is really easy. Like, remove all of our stuff, all of our emotional stuff, remove all of our, special things that we need if we have symptoms or diseases that we need to work on. If we just remove those for 1 second, wellness is really easy. It's eating well, staying hydrated, and exercising, and taking care of our spiritual self. It's 4 things, right? Like, it's so easy. Okay, it's 5 things. Sleeping, we need to sleep good. You know what I mean? The basics, there's not very many basics. It's not like there's a list of 100 things we need to do every day to keep our body functioning well. It's really just a few things. So it's all this stuff in our mind that makes it really heavy and really complex. So meditation is my third tool to allow you to start making this really easier. And I'm not asking you to meditate for an hour a day. I tell people to start out really slow, 3 to 4 minutes a day, right? If you're like, oh my God, 3 minutes is too much. Okay, 2 minutes a day, right? Start really slow. Don't let me intimidate you. 2 minutes a day is doable. Everyone has 2 minutes a day. And, by the time you get in there and you start sort of understanding meditation a little bit more, and you're like, yeah, this is really uncomfortable, but I think I'm getting it. I think I sort of feel it. Maybe for that day that you meditate, you're like, oh, I do feel more calm today. When you start noticing that, and you're like, yeah, this meditation thing is working for me, like that's perfect. And that, when we have that realization, it's easier to say, you know what, I've been doing 2 minutes. I'm going to up it to 5, see what happens there. And then once you've been there for a while, you know what, I'm going to try 12 minutes, see what happens there. Super, super powerful. And we just have to start small. So the best thing about all this is that we already have these built-in navigation tools. Our body, our intuition is going to tell us. We just have to listen. All we have to do is listen to the foods that our body is saying yes to, and less of the foods that our body says no to. Really, really simple. And let our body be in charge, instead of our culture, instead of toxic foods or junk foods. Just let our body be the one that says, this is what I want, and this is what I don't want. Oh my goodness, it is 6:59 and we are wrapping up. How great is that? So this is me as a nutritionist. These are some of the things that I can help you do. I do, even though I don't do meal plans anymore, I do tailored nutrition plans for people. So what that means is we do an 1.5-hour consult. I get to learn all about you and your specific needs. And then I put you a plan together that is specific for foods to add in, drinks to add in, supplements to add in, and lifestyle switches to add in. So it's all about taking what you're already doing right now, and here's what to add to it. So it's not a meal plan, but it is a very specific wellness plan, and it'll help you move the dial. Emotional eating issues, I threw that in there because I'm helping a lot of people with that. And what we're doing is what we talked about tonight, getting to that root with meditation, journaling, right? That's going to help you understand, why am I making these choices, and how can I make a different choice instead? That's all it is. Getting back on the wagon once you've fallen off, all you got to do is get back on. And I can help you get to the root cause of your issues. I'm also doing spiritual energy work. So I'm helping people reclaim parts of themselves that they've given away, if they've given their power away. we can reclaim those and you'll start feeling more whole. And that makes wellness a little bit easier. Do you want to say goodbye to everyone? So you can work with me. Those are some of the options that I have for working with me. And you can go to my website. It's lutesnutrition.ca. And oh, come on, come and say bye. This is Alfie. Yeah, he's so sweet.
What a cutie.
He is such a sweetheart. I think that's the last slide that I have. Yeah, this is Grow With Me. So this is my phone number. You can text me, you can call me, you can ask me questions about working with me. And I want to hang up in a few minutes, but if anyone has any questions, I'm super happy to dig into them with you right now. Otherwise, you're free to go.
I don't know that I have any questions, but I appreciate your discussion about meal plans. I know people who really, measure everything from carbs to sugars to you name it. And some of these people, to their credit, they're bodybuilders or elite athletes. So I get that, right? But I thought, to me, I would never do something like that. And as it turns out, as funny as it is, every morning in the shower, I'm thinking about what am I going to have for lunch today and what am I going to have for supper. And I try to make sure that I don't repeat the same thing all the time, right? I mean, I don't have a large repertoire of things I eat, but if I do breads, it's once per day. If I do meats, it's once per day, things like that, right? So I just try to balance it out and shift it around when I can. So I guess I do meal planning in some sort of way.
Shower meal planning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm just trying to not repeat myself. I don't want to have breads in every meal. You talk about fast food. I've done some research on that stuff and the sodium levels, as you know, with my health condition, sodium is my key. Yeah. So, if I'm going to have a hamburger from A&W, I will tell you my breakfast and lunch will be very low in sodium to allow for that, right? So again, meal planning, intentional planning, right? Anyway, I just wanted to thank you for touching on those things because I think they are very important factors for sure.
That's great. Yeah, you're doing a great job, George. It's, wellness is really, it can be really complex, but once you dedicate the time, right, like you have been, it becomes more of a routine rather than this stressful thing, this stressful monster that you feel like you can't get a grip on, So it sounds like you're doing great. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. I also follow a principle of 4 things. It's called PIES. So the letters stand for like physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. So I kind of follow the PIES model, and that seems to help as well. Very similar to what you were saying.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Thank you so much for being here. And Gretchen, you're still here. You're welcome, George.
I am.
Are you cooking?
Makes a lot of sense. I am starting to cook. Yes.
Great. That's
just
great.
cabbage. It's just mushu.
Yummy.
Oakland. Yeah. Pretty yummy. But I'm so glad that I was able to drop into your presentation, and I took a screenshot of your information.
Oh, wonderful.
Information.
Thank you.
You're 209. You're somewhere. Where's 209?
What's 209? Sorry.
Oh, your prefix.
Oh no, 250. No, I'm in the Okanagan.
You're in
Okanagan.
Oh,
in Canada.
Got it.
Did I have the wrong prefix up there?
No.
I hope not.
I just didn't recognize it. So thank you so much. And so, so there's the information that I can contact you in the future. Thank you so much.
Yeah. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer.
I sure appreciate that. I do have questions.
Okay. Yeah. Send me an email. Thank you so much for showing up.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks again. God bless you.
Thanks, George. You're so sweet. Bye.